Hello everyone, it's Jeff. This is another episode of my top 100 list. I'm catching up from missing last week. Today, the albums covered will be number 30 through number 21. And I have to say, well, I've got a couple things before I get to the list very quickly. This part of the list was probably the hardest section of the list to date, because I have several albums that I've already reserved for like the top 20, and this, if you're going, you know, if we're trying to rank these things, these 10 albums are obviously better than the ones that came before, but aren't quite good enough to make the top 20. So harder choices were made, and it took me a while, because I have, you know, I have a list and things that I've written down, albums, and I've been crossing them off as I've been making this list and trying to decide which goes where. And once I got to this part, I had to really go over it again. I had to go over my collection again and make another pass through it and decide what's what. And it was tough. So yeah, this is we're closing in on the top 20 here, so I'm getting pretty excited about it. And actually, those are going to be a little bit easier because I already kind of know basically what I'm going to put in it. So yeah, this section of the list was probably the toughest out of the whole 100. So yeah, I hope everyone had a good Valentine's Day. Today is the day after Valentine's Day, and of course, my wife, being the wonderful person that she is, got me a record. Well, this was one of my gifts. She got me the vinyl edition of Odelay Buy Back. She watches these videos too, and she saw that I made a comment that someday I'd like to get this on vinyl. So what does she do? She goes out and gets it for me and gives it to me for Valentine's Day. I love that woman. She's the best. Really puts up with my vinyl addiction, puts up with my comic book addiction, although my comic book addiction is dying off slowly. But yeah, she tolerates that collector streak in me. And I have one other thing I got to show you before I get to the list. Last week was my 20th anniversary at my job. I've been there 20 years, and one of the things that she got me, she kind of made it a little bit of a celebration, much more so than anybody else at work. But one of the things she got me is this card. If you can see it there, it says Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. This is a Love Pop card. And if you've ever heard of Love Pop cards, I'm going to turn this around and see if I can open it and make it pop up to show you the Beatles. It's pretty cool, huh? It's 4 Beatles and from the Sgt. Pepper cover. You know, because it was 20 years ago today. See? I love her. So yeah, if you've never seen these Love Pop cards, they're really, really cool. They're a little more expensive than your average greeting card, but man, they're cool. I gave her one for Valentine's Day yesterday, and it was this big bouquet of roses that just popped up as you opened it. She gave me one too. Not the same, but it had like 4 hearts that popped open. So yeah, these Love Pop cards are really quite cool. Okay, geez, 5 minutes into the video, we haven't hit the list yet. All right, let's dive right in, shall we? If I can keep everything going here. Number 30. You've seen this album before. I've talked about it before. It's the only James Brown album that I own currently, but there's going to be a couple more coming in the mail, which you will see. I won a couple auctions last week, so I'm going to be getting more JB. So yeah, I had to put James Brown on the list. This is the only album by his that I own. So, and it would have probably been a strong contender for the list anyway, because it's such a great album. Recorded live. What's on here? Of course, Super Bad. Let It Be Me. He even covers By the Time I Get to Phoenix, which is really kind of interesting. You had a lot of, there were some soul R&B artists covering like country tunes back in the 60s and 70s. It was really kind of weird. But yeah, James Brown's Super Bad is my number 30 album. Number 29, I had to put him on the list somewhere too. This is Icky Thump by the White Stripes. I've shown this recently. This is part of the vault package for the 10th anniversary for this album. Yeah, I love Jack White. I love the White Stripes. Just about, all the other solo and side projects that he does. I'm just a fan. So, and this is a great album. I mean, everything front to back is really strong. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say that I haven't already said about these guys. So I'm just going to move on. This is my number 29 album, Icky Thump by the White Stripes. At number 28 is Layla by Derek and the Dominoes. This is probably one of the purest distillations of Clapton doing the blues. You could really feel it on this album the way you could with other classic blues albums. This is a double album. I originally owned this on cassette, and I listened to it over and over and over and over and over and over. Of course, once I became just a quick look at the gatefold here. Once I became a more serious vinyl collector, of course, I had to have a copy on vinyl for my collection. Of course, the title track is the big, giant, well-known hit. Yeah, it can still send a shiver down your spine when you hear that riff starting up, and his singing is almost like shouting. It's almost like passionate yelling or something. It's just, he was really tortured over not being able to be with George Harrison's wife, as twisted as that kind of is. But yeah, this one's a classic, so I put it at number 28, Layla by Derek and the Dominoes. At number 27, this is a 2-album reissue. I'm knocking everything down here. But Truth by the Jeff Beck Group is my 27 album, number 27 album. This collection reissues Truth and their next album, Backola. This was a reissue, obviously. But just give you a quick look at Jeff Beck there. But Rod Stewart was the lead singer here, and listening to these guys cover, then current songs like, Shapes of Things. They do You Shook Me, which is very, very similar to the Led Zeppelin version, which came out right around the same time that this album did. Of course, Rock My Plimsoll, great, great blues song. Beck's Bolero, I Ain't Superstitious, all classic stuff. This was even more so than his time in the Yardbirds. To me, this is where Jeff Beck made his bones, when he had the the brief association with the Jeff Beck Group. And of course, Rod Stewart, this is great singing by him, you know, before he became a pod person and started singing disco hits and soft rock and standards. Ugh. That's another whole subject out for another video. But for right now, number 27 is the Jeff Beck Group's Truth. Let me pick up my list that I dropped. Okay, at number 26 is a jazz album by John Coltrane. Let me take it out of the sleeve here. This is My Favorite Things. And I've had issues with Coltrane in the past on some of the other stuff of his that I've listened to. But really the first album of his that really kind of grabbed me and made me want to find out more about his music was this one here. He covers the standard My Favorite Things, of course, famously. And that pretty much takes up the whole album side right there. You can see it's 17 and a half minutes long. So, and then the other side has the two other very long songs, Selflessness and I Want to Talk About You. Yeah, so, and this just has liner notes in it. I think this is a reissue. I don't know if this is the original pressing of this album. I think this came out a couple years later, but I don't see a date anywhere, so that's just my guess. Some of you other more knowledgeable jazz guys might know. But yeah, this is where I thought, you know, after listening to some Miles Davis and enjoying that, I was starting to branch out, and listening to this really made me want to go, wow, this guy's pretty good too. I still hold that opinion, even though some of the other albums of his I didn't like on the very first listen. With jazz, I kind of don't make those snap judgments right away, because like even Bitches Brew, like I said in my last episode, I kind of liked it, I kind of didn't, and I would wait a while, you know, sometimes years, and I would see it again and I'd be like, oh, let me try it again, and I ended up liking it a lot better. So I still want to get albums by Coltrane, and this one is an honestly good one. This is, for me personally, it just hooked me right away when I started listening to it. So that's why I put it here at number 26, My Favorite Things by John Coltrane. The next two albums are CDs. Number 25 is another U2 album, Achtung Baby. Some people love this album, some people hate it. Me, I fall in the love it camp. After developing a very signature sound in the 80s, you know, with the Edge's guitar, once the 90s hit, they pretty much played out that sound, and they pretty successfully reinvented themselves with this album. The songs are really, really strong, and it came with, you know, not the same old U2 sound. So, geez, this print is so small I can't even read the song titles. But yeah, when I first heard this on the radio back in 1991, I think, when this came out, it just jumped out of the speakers, it grabbed you, and it, you know, it made you think that, you know, U2 was a band that could grow, could adapt to the times, and change their sound enough, you know, not so much that, you know, you didn't know it was U2, but they just updated it for the 90s. And after this, it probably had diminishing returns on subsequent albums, but for that year, for that time period, U2, to me, pretty successfully reinvented themselves with this album, Achtung Baby. That's my number 25 album. At number 24, what? A metal album? Really? From Jeff? Paranoid by Black Sabbath. Of course. I couldn't not put this album on here. Of course, I don't have it on vinyl. I wish I did. But yeah, even a lightweight metal guy like me likes Black Sabbath. I mean, how could you not? I mean, the title track, of course. Iron Man's on this one. War Pigs. Yeah, this is a classic album. I don't really know what quite to make of this album cover, but the music is good. And I'm sad to say this is really the only Black Sabbath album I own. Not because I don't want to get the other ones. I just haven't. I'm trying to show this without glare. It's really tough. Not because I don't want to. It's one of those things. I just haven't gotten around to tracking their other albums down yet. But yeah, for number 24, Paranoid by Black Sabbath makes the list. A rare metal album from Jeff. I know. I can't believe it either. Okay, number 23 is the first album by The Doors. This is a pretty well beat up copy. Yeah, heavy ring wear. This back cover's got like scratches on it. I don't know why. But this is an original gold Electra pressing, which actually I need to upgrade this copy because even after thorough cleaning, it just doesn't sound that great. But it'll do for now. I used to be a much bigger Doors fan than I am now. I still like some of their stuff, and most of those things that I still like live on this album. I still like Light My Fire, even though it sounds kind of carnival-like with that electric piano. Break On Through was a great track. Crystal Ship, I love the Crystal Ship. That's a great album track. In fact, I mean, I could just go down the track listing and just say, yeah, I love this song, I love that song. But just as a quick aside, I watched Chris's video, Do 1973, about perfect albums, except for one song that kind of ruins it. And for me, on this album, it would be, without a doubt, Alabama Song. You know, the one where he's singing, you know, take me to the next whiskey bar. I can't stand that song. I wish I could just remove it from this album permanently forever. I hate it. Everything else on this album is great. But that Alabama song just drives me crazy. I don't know. It just hits me wrong. I hate it. But everything else on this album I like. So that's why I put it at number 23. This is the self-titled Doors album, their first album from the summer of 1967. Okay, we got two more to go here. At number 22, one of my favorite blues guitarists and singers, one of the three kings, Freddie King. Freddie King Sings is the name of the album. And this is actually a reissue. This isn't an original. But that's okay. There's nothing wrong with reissues. Have You Ever Loved a Woman's on this one? What are you going to say? I mean, the guitar tone that he puts on it and the singing, the passion that he puts in it. I showed Layla a couple of albums back, and he covers Have You Ever Loved a Woman on that album, and it is nothing compared to Freddie King's version. I mean, the guitar is a little bit of the same, but as far as vocals and passion and fire, Freddie King's got it, man. This is a great album. And yeah, this is one of those albums that I wanted to put in the top 20, but there's others that just kind of beat it out just by this much. This is why this came to be so tough. But yeah, Freddie King Sings, I put at number 22, which is still pretty good, for this album. Almost made the top 20, but like I said, hard choices were made. Okay, we have one more left. At number 21 is the first solo, no, not the first solo album, the second solo album by Pete Townsend, Empty Glass. Let me take it out of the cover here. This one is, it's in that kind of period that Townsend went through where he's kind of self-destructive a little bit. After the death of Keith Moon, he started doing drugs and other things and wanting to, break away from the Who, sort of. There was talk that, he was saving, his best songs for his solo records and giving the lesser stuff to the Who albums, which they might have a point. I mean, the songs on this album are really strong. And if they were Who songs, they would be absolute Who classics. I mean, Rough Boys. Of course, Let My Love Open the Door was the big hit for him. Keep on Working. I'm Gonna Get You. These are all great songs. And this was another one that could have easily made the top 20, but you'll probably see some Who, so don't worry. Townsend will be well represented in the coming next 2 videos. So I've got just about all of his solo albums. I've been a big fan of Townsend and the Who for many, many years. So among his solo albums, this one is probably my favorite, I would say, if I had to make a hard choice and pick. So I went with Empty Glass by Pete Townsend as my number 21 album. And there you have it. Thank you for watching. I'll be back next week where we finally break the top 20. We're almost there, kids. And I appreciate if you made it to the end of this video. I appreciate it. And if you've been with me on this list, I appreciate that even more. So everybody take care, and I will talk to you all again soon. Peace.